We've been privileged to work with this group since 2012. I'm glad Chris White's on the line here. I remember when we first started talking about this project and its ambitious goals, and it's really been a privilege to see it come to this point where we've got a set of drawings out for tender, and we're going to be starting a build. So it's a dream that's been a long time in the making, and it's also just really nice to see the faces of everybody who's supporting this nice project. So it's nice to virtually meet you, and hopefully sometime in the near future we'll be able to meet again when the building opens. Man, if you go to the next slide. So Sean kind of gave us a bit of an overview of Lett Architects. We are a studio of 20 in Peterborough. There are some of our extended studio family. In normal times, we would have everybody in the studio with our pets. So we're a pet-friendly office. And fortunately, we've had the opportunity to do a lot of animal care buildings in Southern Ontario. And I'll talk a little bit more about that coming up. You know, the sad thing is that the general consensus of animal care in the province is that most of the facilities are a quarter century or 50 years old, and they're based on standards that really weren't informed at the time. So often they're cramped, the size of the housing isn't large enough, the mechanical systems don't provide the room air exchanges that we now know and understand to be best practice for infection prevention control. And unfortunately, you know, the Peterborough Humane Society is living in a building that fits some of those boxes. And so it's really prudent to think about how to make these things better. And I really commend Peterborough Humane Society for having the ambition to build a building that strives for all the best practice and standards that we know to be true. And we're going to walk you through some of those tonight to give you a sense of what the building has and why it's setting a new bar nationally for animal care. So as many of you know, the building is actually going to house 3 different groups. So there's the Peterborough Humane Society in partnership with the OSPCA Dog Rehabilitation Program, as well as a regional spay-neuter clinic. So this graphic shows the spay-neuter clinic, which is on the east side of the building or the right side of your page. And everything to the left of that red line is a shared facility for the Peterborough Humane Society and the Dog Rehab Center with the OSPCA. There's been a lot of attention paid to infection prevention. We'll walk you through the building and how it's accommodating that. This is kind of an aerial view flying up in the sky, looking down at the site as it will be when it's constructed. So we do have a roundabout drop-off. There is the opportunity to have transit access here. So when we're talking about volunteers and visitors, making this an accessible municipal capital facility is a big win. Parking is dispersed around the site. So all of the number 3s are different parking locations. And the 6 figures, the number 6 on the top left side of the page, are open outdoor enrichment areas. So off-leash spaces for both the community, but also for the dogs within the care of the Peterborough Humane Society. One of the interesting things about this parcel is that it's quite large. So it's 20 acres in size. And so even though we're constructing just in the top left corner of the site, if you look over to the top right of your page, you can see a key plan. So it's a zoomed out scale to show you just the size of the property. And for an organization like the Humane Society, what that really means is just that there's room to grow. So they can start the construction now, but there's room to grow in the future. There's room to expand the spay and neuter clinic. There's room to expand the dog rehabilitation. And there's room to provide, you know, off-leash trails or on-leash trails throughout the natural area as the programming and as the building kind of grows into its new site. So there's a lot of potential here. There are multiple entrances, as I mentioned before. So we're going to start to walk you through some of those and show you some of the reasons why and how the site and the building will be laid out. So the top right image is the main entrance to both the Humane Society, but also to the spay neuter clinic. So if you recall the site plan, we had that drop-off loop or the transit drop-off. That would be directly in front of these two main public entrances, the front face of the building. This entrance will be the main public entrance for the new Peterborough Animal Care Center. So you'll travel through a vestibule and into an open lobby space. We spent a lot of time talking about, and Amanda will speak to this in a bit, but talking about, the basic requirements for animals within care. And obviously access to natural daylight in the outdoors is one of the biggest. And so we really had always talked about the lobby being inundated with light, it being an open, light and airy space. So from the entrance, you come under a low ceiling height in the vestibule to this kind of opening up of the main lobby that has a curtain wall facing south with some screening on it to help with solar heat gain. And then you can see on the top of the image, clear story windows that bring light and kind of funnel them down into the open space. And the idea is that this lobby flows into all the other public amenity zones. So the highlighted space in the bottom of this drawing is the community room. It's noted also with outdoor access. So this really is a multi-purpose. It's as multi-purpose as a multi-purpose space can get. So it can be used for school groups as they come in. It could be used for after-hours classes in the space. They have access to washrooms and to kitchens off the side, and it really becomes a multi-purpose community zone directly off the lobby. So wayfinding as you come in is simple. And this is kind of a cross section or a cut through the building, if you were to picture it as a slice of cake, where you can kind of see the relationship between all of the spaces. There's a lot of opportunity at the back side of the building. So kind of coming out the exterior entrance to the community room, there's a lot of natural space back there for overflow programming opportunities or events in the community room. The other exciting piece that's pulled forward into the public realm off of that main lobby space is some of the interesting stuff that happens behind the door of an organization like the Peterborough Humane Society that people don't get to see, but they really want to see. So this block represents shared programming between Peterborough Humane Society and the OSPCA. It includes an aquatics type center, an aquatics room, a grooming room, behavioral assessment, and there's opportunities through that public corridor to get a glimpse of what's happening inside those rooms and really be able to showcase the good work that's happening within the walls. And this was one of the original concept images of that, but just the ability to bring your kids and to have a look at dogs who are getting rehabilitated, or to, on a sunny Sunday, if you want to get out and check out the Humane Society, to be welcome to come in and have a look at what's happening inside the doors. The vision was always to think of this as a destination, as a community space, more than just animal welfare. The other entrance, obviously up the front, as I mentioned, is the entrance to the spay neuter clinic. This will have a single operatory, sorry, Amanda. It's designed as a single operatory, but does have room for expansion. So if the need for that were to ever expand, there's been provisions accommodated in the design to add a second operatory. And it's treated very much, it can operate independently from the rest of the facility, but will be a huge asset to have in terms of assisting with revenue generation for the sustainability of the organization. At the back of the building are the receiving entrances. So the one at the bottom of the page is the main public receiving entrance. As you come into the site, there would be wayfinding directing you to this location for animals that would be surrendered or brought into the center. Obviously, from an infection prevention control perspective, We don't want animals coming in through the front door if they don't have to. We don't know the status of those animals, if they have any infections or diseases, and we don't want to expose other animals in the center to that risk. So any incoming animals would come through this back door. There's also an arrow on the left side of the screen. That's the main loading entrance. In partnership with the USPCA, there may be animals who are coming to the center who have already been assessed in other locations. And so they similarly wouldn't want to be exposed to any of the illness that may be coming through the main receiving entrance. So the second arrow would be the back entrance to the facility for animals to come to the center that way. And there are 2 dedicated assessment rooms, so exam rooms, that would treat either animals that come in through the main receiving entrance or through the loading entrance, just to check up on the animals, make sure that they're in good health and in good shape, assess them, and then put them in the proper location within the rest of the building. Tucked between the spay and neuter clinic and the public areas of the building and the lobby is the staff area. There is a dedicated entrance at the back of the building for staff. If you picture, the middle of winter, everybody's got snow-covered boots. Having a nice space to come in and hang up your coat and knock off your boots is good. And so that doesn't necessarily have to happen in the front lobby. They have a dedicated staff entrance to be able to do all those good things. The admin and the staff area is connected through to the rest of the building. And we did go through great lengths to make sure that it was as efficient as it needed to be to serve the purposes of the staff, but also, having questions about, if staff have lunch, do they need to have it in the staff area, or could they enjoy that lobby space? Is there opportunities where staff can mingle with public while also maintaining space for staff to have quiet zones where that sometimes is needed? So we've had a lot of conversations around that to make sure that this was right-sized and that there was really space allocated for animals as the core kind of driver for the project. And with that, Amanda's going to start to walk us through some of the research and the thought that's gone into the animal-specific spaces. So over to you, Amanda.
Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me? All right, thank you. So probably the main jumping off point for the design of the Animal Care Center came out of research that we undertook into best practices for animal housing and shelters. So there's 3 parties that have to be considered with regards to animal housing. The animals, of course, the staff, and also potential adopters. So we're going to start by looking at cat housing. So what do cats need when it comes to housing? So ideally, cage dimensions should be around 60 inches by 28 inches per cat for a total area of close to 12 square feet for each cat. We need at least 3 feet between feeding, resting, and elimination areas. Cats like to jump, of course, and climb, so access to elevated areas and tiered cages are important. They need sufficient floor space to move around and play, access to group housing and enrichment areas, and of course, access to natural daylight and exposure to human interaction. It's also really important for them to have acoustic and visual separation from dogs for obvious reasons. As far as staff are concerned, tiered housing is good for them as well because it makes cleaning easier. They can put the cat in one area of the cage and clean the other area of the cage and then reverse it. The housing should have non-porous surfaces for disinfection. Staff need food preparation and cleaning areas, which can be part of the animal room or they can be in another centralized location. And there's obviously a lot of storage for cat litter and food that's associated with that. Cats should be grouped in hubs of up to 25 cats maximum, and that's really for infection control so that you don't have disease running rampant through multiple animals. Ideal ventilation is 10 to 20 room air exchanges per hour. So in 1 hour, the air in that room gets replaced 10 to 20 times. This is especially important for cats because of their susceptibility to upper respiratory infections. And adopters are part of this too. Ensuring potential adopter needs are met means more animals in their forever homes and in them sooner. So potential adopters need to be able to see as many of the cats up for adoption as possible. They need to be able to easily interact with and play with the cats, and they need to have information readily available on cats up for adoption. The design we came up with for cat adoption at the Animal Care Center is a pod that sits within the larger lobby space, as you saw in one of the renderings from earlier. The pod contains 12 custom-built cat condos that have glass windows facing the public corridor side so adopters can see them, and doors that open into a back-of-house area for staff access. There's a cat enrichment room attached to the pod, so the cats will spend a good portion of their time in that room, which faces the public lobby. And the pod is going to be ventilated at a rate of 10 room air exchanges per hour. The cat condos have a more vertical design. They're about 27 inches wide and 72 inches high, and they have 3 levels. The litter box is on the bottom tier, and there will be a frosted film applied over the window there, which keeps the messiest area out of sight and provides some privacy for the cats. There's openings in the floors of each level of the condo, which allows the cat to jump up and move between levels. And then this plan just shows you where the pod is located in the context of the rest of the building. It's off the main lobby, so the cats are going to get lots of natural light through the curtain wall and the clear story windows. We've also given careful consideration to the orientation of the condos and the enrichment room so that the cats are not going to be able to see the dog kennels or the physical treatment room. The requirements for the back-of-house cat rooms are simpler. So these cats are not up for adoption, and the focus is entirely on the needs of the animals and the staff. So there's space within that room for staff to attend to the needs of the cats. There's no more than 25 cats per room. In the isolation room, there's less than that. The isolation room is for sick cats. They stay there until they get better. Double stacked cages are better for staff from an ergonomic standpoint. So only 2 cages stacked one on top of another, so they don't have to bend down to the lowest level. There's an optional counter area with sink for food prep and cleaning. In the isolation room, there's a hookup for a washer dryer, which would allow laundry to be done in the room, and that reduces the possibility of transferring infection out of the isolation room into other cat rooms. The ventilation for observation rooms would be 10 room air exchanges per hour, and the ventilation for cat isolation room where the sick cats are would be 15 room air exchanges per hour. So the Peterborough Animal Care Center is going to have 2 cat observation rooms and 1 cat isolation room. There's where they would be located in the building. And as you can see from this plan, there's doors on both ends of the corridor that lead to the cat room. And so also these rooms are not right next to the dog rooms. So there's some acoustic separation between where the dogs are being kept and where the cats are being kept. So now let's review the considerations around dog housing. So what do dogs need when it comes to housing? They need indoor-outdoor runs, so an interior kennel and a connected exterior kennel. The ideal size for a run is 6 feet by 10 feet, but a bit smaller than this is still excellent. Sufficient floor space to move around and play. They need access to enrichment areas for running, so the dog yards. Access to natural daylight and fresh air, exposure to human interaction. And it's also good to have the ability to be housed with other dogs of similar temperament or history. So if you have a bonded pair, you don't want to separate them. You want them to be able to live in the same kennel together. As far as staff are concerned, they need the ability to easily house the dog in an adjacent indoor or outdoor run during cleaning. They want non-porous surfaces for disinfection, access to food preparation and cleaning areas, which again can be centralized, food storage that is associated with that. It's best to have smaller groupings of dogs for acoustics and infection control. Around 5 seems to be a good number, and ideal ventilation of 10 to 20 room air exchanges per hour. And then similar to the cat adopter needs, adopters need to be able to see as many of the dogs up for adoption as possible. They need to be able to interact with those animals and to see information about the animals that are up for adoption. There's also, good acoustics are an important consideration. I'm sure many of us have had the experience of being in a dog kennel at a shelter and how overwhelmingly loud it is, because when one of the dogs start barking, they all do. This is a really stressful environment for the dogs, but also for any humans that are around to hear it. So it's important to provide solutions to minimize that. So these are the typical dog adoption kennels for the Peterborough Animal Care Center. Each kennel is 6 feet by 8 feet in size, and they are grouped in pairs with a guillotine door between them to maximize flexibility. So if you have a pair of dogs that get along well, then this door can be kept open and the dogs can share a larger enclosure. Every dog kennel has access to an outdoor run that is about 8 feet by 8 feet in size. The openings to the exterior run are protected by a 2-door system. So there's an insulated guillotine door on the inside, which controls access. And then there's a swing door on the outside to keep the temperature of the interior kennel as comfortable as possible. You don't want the dogs to be cold lying next to that door in the wintertime. The exterior runs can be accessed from outside through gates, and there are fence walkways leading to the larger dog yard for exercise and play, which you saw in the site plan earlier. Between each pair of kennels is a small cleaning closet that contains a clinical service sink. So this is a sink that can be flushed. It's typically used in hospitals for cleaning bedpans, but I saw one when I was touring the kennel area at a service dog training school. And the Peterborough Humane Society liked the idea of having this fixture to help with cleaning the dog kennels. The dog adoption kennels are ventilated at 8 room air exchanges per hour. So this is slightly lower than the ideal of 10, but if you compare it to a patient room in a hospital, it's still more than what a patient room in a hospital would be. Because these are the adoption kennels, we need to have a way for adopters to see the dogs. So the front of the kennel is glass. We have a frosted film on part of the lower portion of the kennel as a precaution against reactivity if another dog walks by. We also have an opening in the glass, which can be covered when needed. And that's for potential adopters to be able to interact with the dog by feeding them treats. And here you can see where the adoption kennels are located in the context of the rest of the plan. So they're really close to reception and the promotional area that's across from reception. And then this is a typical dog suite for the Animal Care Center. So these are where the dogs that are not yet up for adoption are housed. So each kennel, again, is 6 feet by 8 feet in size, and there's 4 kennels in each pod. And having, as we discussed earlier, having a smaller number of dogs in the pod is better for acoustics and also better for infection prevention and control. So if you have one dog that starts barking in here, there's only a maximum of 4 dogs, generally speaking, that are gonna start barking as well, and that sound doesn't transmit to any other pods that well. Again, also infection prevention control. If there is an outbreak in one pod, it can be contained to that pod rather than spreading to all the other dogs that are in the facility as well. The dog suites are going to be ventilated at 8 room air exchanges per hour, like the adoption kennels. There's a guillotine door between some of the kennels for flexibility. The ability to create a larger enclosure can also be used at times when the shelter is not at full capacity or to house a mother dog and her puppies. So this is really helpful to increase the flexibility that the Humane Society can offer. Every dog kennel has access to an outdoor run that is the same size as the interior kennel. And like with the adoption kennels, the openings to the exterior run are protected by the 2-door system. And outside the runs are fenced walkways that lead to a larger fenced dog yard for exercise and play. So here's where the dog suites are located in the building. The pod on the far right has been designated as an isolation pod, which is where sick dogs or aggressive dogs would be housed. And it has its own outdoor yard associated with it that's separate from the main dog play enclosure, again, for infection prevention and control. The Dog Rehabilitation Center is mostly integrated with the Humane Society. They do have a pod of kennels on one end of the building, which is the highlighted area on the left of your screen. And then sort of in the middle of the building, we have the physical treatment room, which contains the hydrotherapy pool and the Aqua Treadmill. So this room will be visible from the public corridor, and it's probably going to have a lot of interested viewers. So the Aqua Treadmill really is an underwater treadmill, and its advantage is that it offers a high resistance but low impact workout. So this can be used to rehabilitate injuries and help with weight loss, and also for general training. Similarly, the hydrotherapy pool is another high resistance, low impact workout option that additionally offers the opportunity to play with pool toys. And we do also have a small animal adoption room in the building, which will house animals like rabbits and guinea pigs and hamsters. So because these animals are often prey animals, an acoustic and visual separation from cats and dogs is really important for their well-being. They also require access to natural light and human interaction. So the small animal room in the animal care center contains a built-in pen that has short walls and the option to divide that pen into several smaller pens. So people can look in at the animals and even go in to pet them. There's also some space along one wall for animal cages. And then next to the small animal room is a viewing room, which looks onto the lobby, and that's a flexible room. It can be used to house small animals or kittens or whatever other animals the Humane Society wants to showcase. So the small animal room and the viewing room are located at the front of the building. The viewing room, as I said, looks onto the lobby, and this area is on the opposite side of the lobby from where the cat and dog rooms are to give them a really good separation from those predator animals. And then finally, I want to touch on some of the support spaces. So these are the centralized spaces that support feeding and cleaning for the animals. The support spaces include a room for preparation of food and a dishwashing room for cleaning, sterilizing, and drying dishes following feeding times. The laundry room is designed with a progression from dirty to clean. So there's a mop sink and washing machines on one side, and then the dryers are on the other side. Clean laundry is stored in a separate room until it's needed. The wash bay is a large janitorial room that also serves as a space for cleaning things like litter pans. And here they are in the building, fairly central to all the animal rooms. I didn't highlight them specifically, but adjacent to these support areas are storage rooms, and that's where all the food and the litter will be stored. So it's really close by.
Great. So it's a rapid fire walkthrough of the new building, but I hope that everybody took a little bit from it and are equally as excited about the new building as we are.